Okay, so a very good morning, guys. Can you let me know if you all can hear me and see a screen? Yes. Yeah, good. So today, guys, we're going to start off with the questions on subsidy. So sorry about the small delay. I had to wrap off a few office-related work because today is a working day in the morning. So I woke up in the morning to wrap that off, and just as that was done, I was making the slides for today's class. So today, guys, we're going to do two areas. We're going to focus on subsidies because it's not a very long area. And once we are done with subsidies, we will then move into Lamai maximum prices and price stabilization. So we're going to finish both of those areas today. The class would go till around, I would say around a 10, and we can take around 1 hour for subsidies, around a 1 hour for maximum prices, and we will be able to finish it off. So if you have not done the questions, Lama, that is okay for now. At least you are here. So do the questions with me if you have not done it. But ideally, you should have done it and come, because sometimes you might not have the time to quickly do it with me. So while I discuss the MCQs, Lama, you can give answers on the chat box. The more answers you give, then I would know that more of you all know it and we can move on faster. So let me share my screen and let's get started with the questions on this. Did you all do the questions? I would have informed you all this last week as well, that this time we are doing both of it. Got the questions done? Yeah, good. Right. Then, give me a second. Okay, so I think you can see a screen here as well. So we'll start with Lamai, the questions on subsidies. So before we get into that, a bit of a cartoon also. What is this cartoon about? What's happening over here? There is the IMF, there is the government, and there is the electric shock there. What's happening? Anyone? What does all of this mean? So recently, Lama, in the last couple of days, yes, they increased electricity prices. So the electricity tariff. So tariff can not that it's a tax. So it's the electricity charge that was increased in the last couple of days. So I think starting from this month onwards, it will go up. So they've increased electricity tariffs by around a 15%. The reason that they did this, Lamai, because remember we learned this in unit number 8. I told you earlier in unit number 8, Lamai, uh, the government always had Lamai administered prices. They were even electricity and all of it. They were giving it at a very low price than even their cost. So as a result, what happened? The Ceylon Electricity Board and all of them have been continuously making losses. But now with the IMF program on board, one condition that the IMF has is you can't have these administered prices. You need to have cost reflective pricing. So why do you have to have cost reflective pricing? So you need to have what? Cost reflective pricing. So here am I then now usually based on how much of rain, right now, if you take Sri Lanka, how do we generate electricity? A portion of it, Lamai, comes from hydro and water. Portion of it is from coal, right? You have the Norocholi coal power plants, all of that. A portion of it comes from solar. A portion of it, Lamai, comes from this thermal, right? That is the diesel, petrol, those kind of based electricity. So, and generating electricity, Lamai, based on these categories are, it has a different price. Now, for example, hydro is the cheapest. So hydro, if I'm not mistaken, Lama, you can generate a unit of electricity with water for around 4 rupees per unit. Solar is around 20 rupees, 30 rupees. Then you have Lama, coal-based one that is even expensive. That's close to around 100. Right? You have thermal-based power generation that is also close to around 60, 70 rupees per unit. So different ways of generating electricity, Lamai, has different costs. So depending on how much of rain is there. Now, for example, if there is a lot of rain, if let's say there is raining a lot these days, so raining a lot these days, Lamai, you can generate more electricity using hydro. So then hydroelectricity is cheap. Then electricity prices can go down. But it doesn't reflect like day to day, Lamai. It takes time. So let's say, for example, Sri Lanka has a drought So if we have a drought, no rain, then there is not much water to generate electricity using hydro. Then we'll have to use coal, the thermal electricity. Then it's very expensive. So then based on how you generate electricity, the prices of electricity have to change. So that is what IMF is telling us. So earlier, we never changed. Earlier, no matter how we generate electricity, we always charge, let's say, a fixed amount. So as a result, what happened? Our Ceylon Electricity Board, right, all of them continuously made huge losses. But now the IMF condition says our electricity board, all our state-owned enterprises have to have cost reflective pricing. So your price for electricity should actually reflect your actual cost. So if Sri Lanka is having a drought, if you're generating electricity with thermal and coal, if that is expensive, then you have to increase electricity prices. Don't give it at a lower rate. So because of that, now what happened is, I think closer to the election, there was an electricity rate cut. And as a result, what happened? The Ceylon Electricity Board, started making losses. Now, they were forever, since earlier, they were making losses. But after this IMF program came and there was cost reflective pricing, they started making profits. But again, in the last quarter, they had started making losses. Then IMF was not happy about it. So then IMF said, why is these people again starting to make losses? Right? Why aren't you implementing my cost reflective pricing? So remember, my IMF has conditions, no others. They're not going to give you the next set of money. So then IMF said, look here, if you want the next set of money, you have to again look into this electricity thing and you have to sort that out. So that is why now they have again increased electricity tariffs. So there is a 15% increase in electricity tariffs. So to make sure, Lamai, that we are on board with this cost reflective pricing mechanism. So that goes into unit number 8, where we talk a little bit about in detail in terms of the fiscal side, how that has helped reduce the government burden on funding all of these state-owned enterprises and all of that. Okay, so that is the story over there. Saturday morning, I have another class on Saturday evening. That's the problem. One more thing, so tomorrow morning, I'm doing a special session on the past papers itself, but I'm going to do all the past papers, on credit creation. So credit creation is a part in unit number 7. I'm hoping by now you all have learned that in whatever class or whatever school that you all go to. So credit creation, is usually a bit of a difficult area, right? Some students get a little confused in this area. So I'm not going to teach you the theory from basics. For that, I would have sent you a YouTube video also. You can watch that if you want to learn the theory. What I will be doing is, I will be doing all the past papers from this credit creation related area. So the class is tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So credit creation is a difficult area, So make sure you come. I will not do it again when I do unit number 7. So in unit number 7, there are around 5 focus areas. One of that is credit creation. That one I'm doing it tomorrow. I will not again, now we are in unit number 3 in the class. So then when you come to unit 4, 5, 6, then when I come to 7, I will not do credit creation again because I'm doing it tomorrow. So the link and all will be sent on the main past paper class group. There is no registrations separately. I will send it in the past paper class group. So tomorrow at 8, so by around 7:30, I will send the link. I have sent the PDF tute also. After this class also, I will send. In terms of recording, most likely I will not provide it, but we'll see. If I find some time, I might put it on YouTube, but otherwise I will not provide the recording. So even this class, even last class, when Friday's class was not uploaded. If I find the time, I will put it, but otherwise I have told you I will not be sending the recording. Okay. So is the electricity price story shaped, Lamai? Is that current context fine? Understood the story, why they increased, and what is this cost reflective pricing and all? Yeah, good. So then we'll get into the questions itself. So starting, Lamai, with the 2013 A-level question on subsidies. So give me answers. The faster you all give me, the faster we can finish. So we'll target to finish subsidies in, let's say, in an hour, and then we can move into maximum price. We'll take a break after that. We'll move to maximum prices. So starting with question number 12. We'll be saying, suppose the government sends each parent a coupon that can be used to subsidize the cost of sending each child to daycare. What would you expect to occur in the market for daycare services? Now, this question, Lamai, is a little bit unique. Now, usually in our syllabus, Lamai, We talk about subsidies provided to whom? Consumers or producers? In our syllabus in unit number 3, subsidies given to how? The consumer or the producer? We talk about subsidies given to producers, no? Right? So when the government provides a unit subsidy to the producer, the supply curve shifts to the right. That is what we usually talk about. So usually in our syllabus, what do we have? Subsidies to the producer. Right? So that is why you shift the supply curve and not the demand curve. When you provide a subsidy to the producer, the supply curve shifts to the right. That was the story. But now read this question and see, are they giving the subsidy to the producer or to the consumer? Balanna this whole daycare story. Are they giving the subsidy to the daycare owner, or are they giving it to the parent who is sending the son to the daycare, son or the daughter to the daycare? See, suppose the government sends the parent a coupon that can be used to subsidize the cost of sending the child to the daycare. So maybe let's say if daycare expenses are 10,000 rupees a month, so government has given the parents a coupon of 1,000 rupees. So then the parent can go to the daycare, pay 9,000 and give that coupon of 1,000 and settle the daycare payments. They get a 1,000 rupee discount kind of a thing. That is what is happening. So they're asking you, what would you expect to occur in the market for daycare services? So if you're giving this subsidy to the consumer, what would it affect? The demand or the supply of daycares? It's going to affect the demand for daycares, no? And what do you think will happen to the demand, Lamai? If the government starts giving subsidies for daycares, the demand for daycares will increase or decrease? The demand for daycares, will increase. So demand for daycares will increase, and what do you think will happen to the price? Now, usually, if you draw the diagram here, you get a little confused. If demand increases, it's a rightward shift. Equilibrium price goes up. But actually, because there is a subsidy, the price paid by the consumer will start to come down. Because you're getting subsidies, you're getting a coupon here, So the demand for daycare rises, and the prices that consumers pay will start to come down because they have a subsidy kind of a coupon that is there to them. So be very careful, Lamai. Remember, usually your subsidy questions are on the producer. But if you look at a question like this, it's not on the producer. So don't always go and think, subsidy, then supply curve will shift to the right. Don't go there. Okay. So which one is our answer then? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Number 2, no? The demand for daycare rises, lowering the prices for the consumer. Okay. Then going into the next one. Next one is from the 2018 paper. So then all the other papers haven't had questions. So 2018 paper question number 14. I'm guessing this question hasn't been typed fully in that PDF I sent. And I think that these small first few words are not there. You just note it down. It doesn't make a difference. You can still do the question. So they're saying, suppose the market supply curve for a certain consumer is upward sloping and the market demand curve is downward sloping. How does a subsidy on a product affect consumer and producer surplus? Easy, Nilaman. What happens when you provide a subsidy? What happens to consumer surplus? What happens to producer surplus? When you provide a subsidy, the price consumer pays comes down. He buys up a higher quantity also. So as a result, consumer surplus will increase or decrease. Consumer surplus increases. Along with that, what happens to producer surplus also? When there is a subsidy, the producer also gets a higher price, no? Consumer pays a lower price. Government provides a subsidy. So producer also gets a higher price. And he also sells a higher quantity, right? We'll draw this diagram. I'm not drawing the diagram in this question. We have some other questions in the future. I'll draw the diagram there and show you. So then you will see the producer surplus also tends to increase. And that we all know, it's a very basic area. So which one is our answer then? Consumer surplus, producer surplus, both increasing is answer number 3. Done. Then we go to the next one. Next one is from the 2019 A-level paper, the old syllabus one. Old syllabus in the sense, remember I told you all, in 2019 is where the new syllabus came. So when the new syllabus comes, lamai, there are certain students. Now the new syllabus paper only will be there in your past paper book. That is the actual paper. But there are some 2018 students who are repeating A-levels in 2019. So for those students, lamai, it's not fair to make them study a new syllabus all over again, because results come, while the time results come and you decide you're going to resit, you only have around 6 months. So they can't study the new syllabus in 11. So therefore, they make a old syllabus paper as well. So that is this paper. So the content is the same. It's just that it's called the old syllabus paper. So then the question says, the diagram shows the market for essential consumer product before and after the subsidy. What is the total amount of money paid in subsidies? They're asking you, what is the total government expenditure? So how do you analyze this graph, Lama? You have the initial supply curve, that is the blue one that I'm drawing. You have the initial demand curve, right? Demand curve doesn't change. No? So based on demand and supply, sorry about this, my voice is a bit gone today. So you have the equilibrium price, you have the equilibrium quantity. And then what happens when there is a subsidy, Lamai? Supply curve shifts to the right. So now you have a new supply curve shifted to the right. Now you have your new equilibrium price, that is price K, and your new equilibrium quantity. How do you find the total government expenditure on subsidy? From your new equilibrium, that is this green dot, you draw a line to your old supply curve, you connect it to the price axis. So this rectangle that gets formed there, that is your total subsidy expenditure, the total cost of your subsidy. So what is that area, Lamai, according to the answers? Answer number 5. A, B, not EC, no? Which one? Is it 5? Oh, sorry, that is 4. KABL. Yeah. Answer number 5. KABL. That's the area that shows this green rectangle. Lamai, these questions are almost like free marks in your paper. Eva miss karaganna epa lamai. Now, sometimes when you see this graph, you get a little scared. Like you wonder how to do this, and all of that gets scared. But these are very easy thing that they're actually asking. They're not even confusing you. You just have to figure out the area and then find the corresponding letters to that. Okay. Moving to the next one. So there was a question in the 2019 new syllabus paper as well. That is question number 13. They're saying, the diagram below shows a competitive market for agricultural commodity. If the government grants a per unit subsidy to the producers, how will the economic surplus be distributed between consumers and producers? So whom do you think, Lamai, will, now when you say economic surplus here, Lamai, you're talking about the subsidy benefit. Lamai, whom do you think benefits more? I would have told you, Lamai, when we did taxes also in subsidies, higher the inelasticity, higher the inelasticity. So whoever who is more inelastic, higher the subsidy benefit. So whoever who is inelastic, Lamai, gets most of the benefit. I will draw and show you as well, gets most of the benefit. So according to this diagram, Lamai, who is inelastic? You'll have to look at the shape now. Is the supply curve the one that is inelastic, or is it the demand curve that is inelastic? Who is the inelastic guy? This is where your unit 2 elasticity knowledge comes into play. The supply curve, no, the steep supply curve here. This is the one that is inelastic. So producer, so according to our shortcut, Lamai, that means the producer will get a major proportion of the subsidy. So he will get a bigger benefit than the consumer. Shall I draw and show you? So we'll draw the diagram, Lamai. How to figure out this benefit? That is a shortcut. No? We'll draw and see. So when there is a subsidy, what happens? Your supply curve, Lamai, shifts to the right. Okay, so I'm shifting my supply curve to the right. So let's say, Lamai, earlier our equilibrium price was 10 rupees. Consumer paid 10 rupees, producer got 10 rupees. Now, when the supply curve shifts to the right, we have, Lamai, a new equilibrium price. So you can see now the new equilibrium price, Lamai, has fallen down only a little. It has not fallen much. No? So your new equilibrium price, let's say, is around 9 rupees. What does that mean? Earlier, the equilibrium price was 10. Now the equilibrium price is 9. The equilibrium price is what the consumer pays, Lama. So earlier consumer paid 10 rupees. Now he's paying 9 rupees. So that means the consumer, right? The consumer, Lama, is getting a 1 rupee benefit. Let's say there's a subsidy of 5 rupees. Then how do you find the price received by the producer? From your new equilibrium, you draw a line, Lamai, to your old supply curve, method, and then you connect that to the price axis. So here it goes above the graph also. Then you get, Lamai, the price received by the producer. So according to my example, if the subsidy is 5 rupees, how much should the price received by the producer be, Lamai? The new equilibrium price is 9. Consumer is paying 9 rupees. How much will the producer get? No, not 4. How much do you think? Consumer is paying 9. There is a subsidy of 5 on top of it. So the producer will receive 9 plus the subsidy of 5. Producer will get, Lamai, a 14 rupees. So this yellow shaded area, right? This area shaded in yellow, Lamai, this is the producer subsidy benefit. So producer is getting a benefit of 4 rupees per unit. Earlier producer got 10, now he's getting 14. The consumer, this green area, that is the consumer subsidy benefit. Consumer is getting only a 1 rupee benefit. Earlier he paid 10, now he's paying only 9. So only 1 rupee a reduction. Producer has got 4 rupees more. So producer gets a higher benefit. So you need to know how to draw this, Lamai, because you can get paper 2 questions. So in the MCQ here now, you don't have to draw. So in the MCQ, you can remember, Lamai, whoever who is inelastic will get most of the benefit. So in our example, producer was inelastic. So I told you the producer will get a major proportion of the subsidy benefit. And that's what I drawed and showed you as well. You can see the yellow shaded area is much bigger than the green shaded area that is there. Okay. So then which one is your answer? The majority of the economic surplus will go to consumers. Majority of the economic surplus will go to producers. Yes, producers. Economic surplus, will it go entirely to the producer? Did the 5 rupee subsidy, did the entire thing go to the producer? No, no. Even though there was a 5 rupee subsidy, producer got only a 4 rupee benefit. The other 1 rupee was received by the consumer. So the entire benefit didn't go. He got a majority of it. Okay. And then 4 is also wrong. Equally shared? No. A majority goes for this. How many of you got this correct, Lama? Question 13, 2019. Yeah. Answer is number 2. Good. Then going into the last 2 MCQs that we have, the 2023 and the 2024 questions. So in the 2023 A-level paper, question number 14, they're asking you, it's from the same knowledge that they tested in the previous MCQ. They're saying, in order to reduce the price of an essential consumer good, the government has decided to provide a per unit subsidy. As a result, the price of the good will fall most when the price elasticity of what? Price is falling more kiyanne, they are asking you what? What are they asking you? In which situation will the consumer get most of the benefit, or in which situation will the producer get most of the benefit? What are they asking? Price falling more kiyanne. Price is the equilibrium price. So the more the equilibrium price falls, Lamai, that is the consumer's benefit. So indirectly, they are asking you, when will the consumer get a higher subsidy benefit? So when does the consumer get a higher subsidy benefit, Lama? When demand is what? When will the consumer get a higher benefit? Elastic or inelastic? What did I tell you as a shortcut also previously? Higher the inelasticity, higher the subsidy benefit. So if demand is inelastic, Lamai, then the consumer might get more of the benefit. But if you also want, Lamai, if you can give a more better example, when do you think the consumer will get the entire benefit? If demand is inelastic, he'll get more of the benefit. When do you think he'll get more the entire subsidy benefit? He will get the entire subsidy benefit if the demand is perfectly inelastic. So see if there is an answer that says demand is perfectly inelastic. If not, you can go for the other one. So they're asking you, when will the price of the good fall the most? The price of the good will fall the most if demand is perfectly inelastic. He'll get the entire benefit. But if there is no answer like that, then you can even think of an answer that says demand is inelastic. So demand is inelastic. That could be answer number. Now, along with this, you can also argue for answer number 1. Higher the inelasticity, higher the subsidy benefit. Whoever who is inelastic get most of the benefit. That means whoever who is elastic doesn't get the benefit. So then if demand is inelastic, you can say, sir, on the other side, what if supply is elastic? But then the problem with that is, Lamai, now supply is elastic, right? So if supply is elastic, then the producer won't get much of the benefit. But in that answer, you don't know what is the demand elasticity. Now, what if supply is elastic and demand is perfectly elastic? So then the supply might get more of them. So that's why you go with answer for that. Did you get that right? Yes. When demand is inelastic, the producer might get most of the, consumer might get most of the benefit. So again, that's a good question, Lamai. They're testing you on that whole subsidy benefit and that area. Now, again, Lamai, this is not an area that you all can memorize. Logically, you have to understand now. You should remember that graph. You should remember that, that whole story I would have explained. Yeah, done. Then we go into, I'm getting calls all over and over again. Okay. Then question 24. Question 24, Lamai. Sorry, 2024. Question number 14. They're saying, suppose the government intends to increase the income of paddy farmers without raising the price to consumers. So they want the paddy farmers' income. Income can be total revenue. They want paddy farmers' total revenue to increase without increasing the price for the consumer. So the price the consumer pays. So consumer pays, the price the consumer pays is called the equilibrium price. So without equilibrium price should not increase. Without increasing the equilibrium price, they want the producer to have a higher total revenue. How can they do that, Lamai? Most appropriate government policy would be what? First one, to release a rice stock, a release of government rice stock onto the market. So government might have a buffer stock, you're trying to release it. So government releasing the buffer stock, Lamai, doesn't increase the producer's revenue. That is government's buffer stock. If they release, government will get the revenue. So here producer doesn't really get. Then setting a guaranteed price above the market price with an agreement to purchase the unsold output. If this happens, Lamai, does the total revenue of the farmer increase? Government sets a minimum price, a guaranteed price, and they purchase the excess supply as well. Will the farmer's total revenue go up? Yes or no? Farmer is getting a higher price, selling a higher quantity. Yes, Lamai, farmer's total revenue will go up. But along with the total revenue going up, what happens to the price paid by the consumer? If you set a minimum price, a guaranteed price, the price will also increase. Now remember, we are trying to achieve an increase in total revenue without increasing the price to the consumer. So then you can't do this. Not 2. Yes, 2 increases the total revenue, I agree. But it will also increase the price to the consumer. So that's not our answer. Then we look at the next one. Question answer 3 is saying, introducing a minimum price below the market price. There is no point of introducing a minimum price below market price now because it will again go to the equilibrium with an agreement to purchase the unsold. So that doesn't make sense at all. You don't set minimum prices below market. Then introducing a maximum price. If you set a maximum price, yes, my consumer price might go down. But what on the other hand, producer's revenue will come down. He will be able to sell only less. So then not this. Then you get up with the last one, which could be your answer. They're saying introduce a subsidy. So if you provide a subsidy lamai, your equilibrium price comes down. So equilibrium price comes down, the price the consumer pay is not increasing. That's what they're trying to achieve without causing a rise in the price the consumer pays. So consumer's price is actually coming down. He's actually benefiting. And along with that, when the government gives a subsidy, producer gets a higher price. He sells also a higher quantity. So as a result, the producer's total revenue starts to go up. So therefore, under that could be your answer. Answer number 5. That's 2024. Okay, so those are the MCQs that we have. Can you all look at the numbers and see how much did you all get right? There were 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 MCQs. At least got around 4 of it right. There were some questions that were very easy and direct. At least 4 out of 6. We had 6 MCQs. How much did you all get? 5. No one got 6. Were there only 5 MCQs? Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, there were some people who got 6. Perfect. Right. So then Lama will move into the essay questions. So we'll quickly get the essay questions done. And then we can take a break and then we'll move into maximum prices. So 2017 is where the first essay question from this comes. So the question itself is a very easy one, Lama. This is the year that I did my A levels. They're saying, using a demand and supply diagram, explain how the granting of a subsidy would affect the surplus enjoyed by producers. In simple terms, Lamai, they are asking you to explain how does the producer surplus change using a diagram. So then Lamai, remember in my class also when I teach you all that with those letters, consumer surplus before is this, now it is. Under that approach, you can take Lamai. So first, maybe you can give a small intro paragraph. Now, I'm not typing the answer one by one. You can start writing a bit. So you can give a small intro saying, Lamai, when there is a subsidy, the supply will increase and your equilibrium price will start coming down. Supply will shift to the right. And then you can show this can be shown by the diagram below. Now you draw a diagram. So we'll draw a diagram. So let's say this is my diagram. You have the demand curve. You have the supply curve, demand, price, quantity. Then Anna, this is your equilibrium price and quantity. So now what happens? When there is a subsidy lamai, your supply curve shifts to the right. Supply shifts to the right. This is your supply curve after subsidy. We'll denote it with the letter R, S plus R. So now this is your new equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. Then how do you find the total subsidy area? From your new equilibrium, if I zoom in, you draw a line to your old supply curve, you connect it to the price axis. So now you have to Lamai show, you don't have to put all these letters. You have to Lamai show how the producer surplus increase now. So only put letters relevant to that. So what I would do is I would mark the equilibrium price. So initial equilibrium price is this P1. New equilibrium price is this P2. And then P3. P3 is the price received by the producer. This is the new equilibrium. This is the initial equilibrium price. And then you can mark Q1, initial equilibrium, Q2, equilibrium after. So now, if you look at which area is producer surplus before the subsidy? Before the subsidy, my producer surplus is this green shaded area. Now, in your A-level paper, you all can't shade like this. No? So what you do is you put some letters. So draw the diagram, put some letters. So I'll mark this A and B. So you can say, before a subsidy has been granted, the producer would receive the price of P1 and he would be selling the quantity Q1. As a result, the producer surplus would be the letters A plus B. So in your diagram, you have label. Now you can say, when a subsidy has been granted, the supplier, the producer, will now receive a much higher price, which is denoted by P3. Whatever, how you denote it, P3, and he is now able to sell the quantity Q2. So as a result of this, his new producer surplus would be what, Lamai? Your new producer surplus increases, no? Now even this part, even this part here gets added to producer surplus. So now producer surplus, that triangle has expanded a bit more. So maybe put some letters there again, Lamai. You can put, let's say, I would say C and D. I don't know if the letters are visible, but yeah, C and D. So now you can say, as a result of the subsidy, now the producer receives a much higher price and is able to sell a much higher quantity. Therefore, his new producer surplus would now be A, B, C plus D. And then you can give the change. So as a result of subsidy, producer surplus has increased by the area C plus D. Anna, that is how you explain that, Lamai. So you have to explain, because of a subsidy, how does the surplus enjoyed by the producer surplus increase? Now you need to understand, Lamai. Now this whole thing they can ask you in so many ways. In your A-level paper, they can ask you this. They can ask you about what happens to the consumer surplus. They can give you a tax and ask you what happens to producer surplus. They can give you a tax and ask you what happens to consumer surplus. So it's not about memorizing the question, Lamai. It's about getting the question done and marking the letters, drawing the proper diagram, and then explaining it. So you can say, so don't write points, Lamai, write it in nice paragraph. Consumer surplus before, sorry, not consumer, producer surplus before is A plus B. Now the producer surplus after is A plus B plus C plus D. The change in producer surplus. So producer surplus is increasing by the area C and D. Do we have to talk about elasticity? Not needed, Lamai. This producer surplus. So if they talk about the subsidy benefit and all, touching a little bit about elasticity is okay. But here you don't have to have it. No, this graph doesn't have to be on a graph paper, Lamai. Make it a scale like a cone. You can draw this on your normal paper. Now, usually, you use a graph paper if they tell you, they tell you to calculate equilibrium, show this equilibrium on a graph. These normal graphs and whatever what you're drawing, Lamai, in the question, you can draw it normal. But if the question specifically says, right, show this equilibrium on a graph, and then you have to have a graph paper plan, because when they say show this equilibrium on a graph, they mean you have to have a proper scale. So there, a graph paper is necessary. Done. Then going to the next one, the 2019 question. So 2019 whole question, Lamai, there's a full question on the whole subsidy thing. And we have to do all the calculations. So some of these parts, Lamai, I will get help from you all because that's the initial part. And then we'll go into more detail. So I don't think you will get a question like this in your paper, Lamai. This is an entire 20-mark question on subsidies. So this very unlikely that you will get. And also remember, Lamai, now some of this will be a little different from the marking scheme that was there. Because how you calculate economic surplus, how you calculate certain deadweight loss and all of these things changed in around 2022. 2021, 2022, it changed. Now, these are 2019 paper. So therefore, the marking that is there in the marking scheme might be different than what I explained. So I am explaining the latest method. Latest method, when you get your little paper, you can do it that way. So just in case if you come across that discrepancy, just check. Okay. Then coming into the question, they're saying, suppose demand and supply for a product in a competitive market is represented by the following equations. Find the equilibrium price and quantity for the product, and they give you 4 marks. So can you all give me, I'm not going to go into detail. Can you all give me answers? How much is the equilibrium price and quantity that you all can do, Lama, if there is a demand and supply equation? How much is the equilibrium price and quantity? So you equate the QD and the QS and find equilibrium price is 26. Okay. So equilibrium price is rupees 26. Your equilibrium quantity is a 48 units. That's that part. All of you all know. So properly show the working, write the full answer, get that done. That is part 1. Then part 2 is saying, suppose calculate the price elasticity of demand at equilibrium. Again, 4 marks. Ambo. That's like, Lamai, 3 marks, I get 3 marks. So how do you find PED? PED is your minus B component into price over QD. How much is my minus B component? That I should take from my demand equation. That is the slope of your demand equation. Change in QD, change in P. How much is that? QD is 100 minus 2P. So that minus 2 is the one, no? That minus 2 is the minus B. So you take minus 2 into price and QD. What do I take? Equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. So equilibrium price is 26. Equilibrium quantity is 48. So when I simplify, how much do I get? That's the PED at equilibrium, minus 1.08. Do you exactly get at 2 decimals, or does it go recurrent? Exactly at 2? Does it stop at 0.8, or does it go 0.8 something, something, something? It goes. So you can stop it at 0.8. Then you can stop it. I'm hoping you round it off properly. You can stop it over there. That's your calculate PED at equilibrium. They are not even asking for PES. So second part is also done. Third part is asking, suppose now the government has decided to grant a subsidy of 5 rupees per unit. Calculate the equilibrium price of the product after the subsidy. So now this is where the subsidy starts. So now remember, if you want to calculate the equilibrium after subsidy, what should you first find? There is one thing that you have to find out first. What do you find first? You have to make the new supply equation after subsidy. You have to first make that, then only you can find the equilibrium. So how do you make the supply equation after subsidy? Your supply equation is your normal equation is QS equals A plus BP. When there is a subsidy, what happens? It becomes A plus B within brackets P plus R. Or we can say P plus S. That's okay. So then take numbers from your question. How much is your A component? Supply equation minus 30 plus 3P. So minus 30 is your A. 3 is your B. P plus the subsidy they are implementing is a 5 rupee subsidy. So now if you simplify that equation, you get your new supply equation. So how much is that? QS is equal to minus 30. 3 into P is 3P. 3 into 5 is a plus 15. Be careful when opening the brackets. So then you get your new supply equation. Minus 30 plus 15, you get a minus 15 plus 3P. That's your new supply equation. Now you have to find your equilibrium price and quantity after the subsidy. So how do you do that? You take your demand equation, the original one, take your demand equation, you equate it with your new supply equation. So demand equation was 100 minus 2P, no? 100 minus 2P. The new supply equation is a minus 15 plus a 3P. So I will leave it there. Can you give me the equilibrium price? You can simplify and do that. How much do we get? If you want, I'll quickly write it. How much is P? P is equal to a 23. Okay, so now you have to find the equilibrium quantity. How do you find that? Take this equilibrium price, substitute this to either the QD or the new QS equation, one of the two. So then how much do we get? Quantity should be higher than the previous quantity. Yeah. So if I substitute the QD equation, so 100 minus 2 into 23. So you get 2 into 23 is 46. 100 minus 46, you get a 54. Done. So write your final answer nicely. Say equilibrium price equals rupees 23. Equilibrium quantity equals 54. So you write the whole thing in complete form. Okay, then part 3 of that is also done. So then that is another 4 marks. So 12 marks covered there. Not a chance, no, if you get a question like this. Fourth one is saying, compare economic surplus before and after subsidy. Now that is a bit of an annoying question now. So compare economic surplus. Now earlier, when you take economic surplus after subsidy, you adjust for the subsidy also. Government subsidy expenditure. But now In the new method, remember, lamai, taxes, subsidies, maximum price, minimum price, anything. Economic surplus after is only consumer surplus after and produce surplus after. You add the two together, you get economic surplus after. You don't have to adjust for any government revenue, expenditure, anything. My previous videos on YouTube, lamai, would have asked you to adjust for it because that is the old syllabus. Old syllabus, then I would have done that around 2-3 years ago. That is there. So be careful. That's why the people who are watching the video on YouTube, the old one, goes a little wrong. So I hope the teachers have taught you all the new one. So then to find economic surplus, lamai, the change in economic surplus, now you have to, lamai, find the consumer surplus before, find the producer surplus before, find the consumer surplus after, find the producer surplus after, and then you have to get the changes. So what I will do is, lamai, now I will have a diagram. Now I want help from you all to do this. I will not go to the very basics. So I'll draw the diagram. They have the demand, you have your supply, then you have your new supply curve. This is your initial equilibrium price, new equilibrium price, initial equilibrium quantity, new equilibrium. Okay. So we'll mark the information that we have for now. So this is your original supply curve. This is your supply curve after subsidy. This is your demand curve. This is the price axis. This is the quantity axis. This is 0. What is my initial equilibrium price and quantity? Initially, how much was the price and quantity? 26 and 48. So then I'll label that 26, 48. Right. So before I go to the subsidy and all of it, can you all also tell me, I'm not going to that part there. Can you all calculate and tell me how much is the maximum demand price? How much is the minimum supply price? That is the price when QD equals 0 and the price when QS equals 0. That we have done, Lama, so many times in unit number 2 calculations, in tax calculations also we did. So I'm not going to teach you that again. So can you all give me the numbers? How much is the maximum demand price? That has to be 50. Okay. So 100 divided by 2. No? So maximum demand price is a 50. Okay. How much is your minimum supply price? Minimum supply price would be a 10. Okay. Right. So that you all should know how to calculate, Lamai. You can get that done. So then based on this, now we'll forget about the subsidy for now. Based on this, Lamai, you can calculate economic surplus before. No? So economic surplus before is, this is the consumer surplus, this yellow shaded area. This is the consumer surplus. This green shaded area is the producer surplus. So based on this, can you calculate the consumer surplus before, producer surplus before, and the economic surplus before the subsidy? Okay. How much is the consumer surplus? Half into base is 48, height is 50 minus 26. So when you simplify, how much do you get, Laman? 576. Okay. 576. Then producer surplus. How much is the producer surplus before? Half into base is 48. The height is 26 minus 10. 26 minus 10. When you simplify, 384 or 387? How much do I get? 87. Yeah. Going with the majority answers. 384. Oh, 87. 84. Okay. So then, this is 384 is your producer surplus. Okay. Right. Then how much is your economic surplus? Economic surplus before. That is 576 plus 384. You get 960. Right. That is the economic surplus before. Now you have to compare this with, Lamai, the economic surplus after, and that's how you get the change. So now we'll get into economic surplus after. So how do we look into this? Listen, So to find economic surplus after, you need consumer surplus after, produce surplus after. So there lamai, the supply curve shifts to the right. When the supply curve shifts to the right, you have your new equilibrium. How much is my new equilibrium price and quantity? New equilibrium price is a 23. Okay. New equilibrium quantity is a 54. Okay. So I mark that 23 and the 54. Now what do I do, Lama? I have to complete this diagram. I have to find the total subsidy area. How do I get that? From your new equilibrium, you draw a line to your old supply curve and you connect that, Lamai, to the price axis. So can you tell me what is the price over there? You have to figure that out, Lamai. What is the price at this point? Consumer is paying 23 rupees. That's the new equilibrium price. There is a subsidy of 5 rupees. That means how much will the producer receive? Producer should then receive, Lamai, a 28. Anna, that is the price. Now you have completed the diagram. Now which area is consumer surplus, produce surplus? So now what happens, Lamai? I'll add it to the same diagram that is there. The yellow shaded area was consumer surplus. Now consumer is paying a lesser price of 23, buying 54. So what happens, Lamai? This yellow shaded area, this one that I'm trying to highlight in my pen, not visible. This area, Lamai, also gets added to consumer surplus. So now consumer surplus would be this entire triangle because consumer is now paying a lesser price, buying a higher quantity. Now what happens to producer surplus? Producer surplus also increases. Producer surplus earlier was until 26. Now this part also gets added. Now producer surplus becomes this entire green triangle. So areas can overlap, Lamai. There is no problem with the areas overlapping. So now find the consumer and the producer surplus. So we'll get to that. What is the consumer surplus after? Half into base is 54. Height is, Lamai, the yellow triangle, no? 50 minus 23. So show that height. 50 minus 23. So when you simplify this, Lamai, how much do you all get? 729. Okay. Consumer surplus 729. Then we come to producer surplus. Producer surplus, Lamai, is the green shaded triangle. How much is that? That is half into base is 54. Height is 28 minus 10. How much do you all get? 486. Please. 486. So if the consumer surplus is 729, producer surplus is 486, how much is, Lamai, your economic surplus? Remember, economic surplus is just the addition of these two. We don't adjust for any government expenditure or anything. Earlier in the marking scheme, they would have. I'm teaching you the new method now. So your economic surplus would have been the 729 consumer, the 486 producer. Both of that put together, you get a 1215. Good. So now what is the question asking? Question is not asking for this. Question is asking you, Lamai, what is the change in the economic surplus? So to compare. So then, compare and show, Lamai. Consumer surplus earlier. So you write a sentence for that. Consumer surplus before the subsidy is 960 rupees. This is the consumer surplus before. Now, consumer surplus after the subsidy is 1250. And then say, by how much has the consumer surplus changed by? Earlier 960, now 2115 means it has increased by here. Consumer surplus has increased by, not consumer surplus, economic surplus has increased by rupees 255. Okay. And that's how you can give that answer. Now that is a lot of working to do, Lamai, for a 4-mark question. Now that's why, Lamai, if you looked at the first three questions were actually easy. You don't even need. Now, usually, Lamai, how does your timing work? What have I told you? When you're timing a paper 2 question, the ideal target is, Lamai, for 1 mark, you can allocate 1.5 minutes. That is the timing. A little bit more than that is okay. 1 mark, 1.5 minutes. That is like the rule that you can follow. So 1 mark, 1.5 minutes can lamai. Then a 2 mark question, you can take 3 minutes. A 4 mark question, you can take 6 minutes. Now, if you take lamai question number 1, 2, and 3, that is 12 marks. So 12 marks you can take 18 minutes. You don't need 18 minutes to do 1, 2, and 3. So you might have finished that in, let's say, 10 minutes. You have 8 minutes extra. Now that you could have used for part 4. Part 4, maybe it might take you a little bit more than 6 minutes to calculate and be careful with the numbers, draw the diagram. Might take. So that's how the examiner will balance it right. Just cause 1 mark, 1.5 minutes you don't have to finish it all of a sudden, but just balance that properly there. That. Then this one. What can you conclude on the allocative efficiency of resource allocation in this market after the introduction of the subsidy? What are they talking about? Remember our new deadweight loss story? And that is what they're asking you to explain now. What happens to the allocative efficiency because of this subsidy? So I'll try to get try to erase a bit of this. Erasing the diagram. Yeah, that's the best I can do. Okay. So listen carefully on the allocative efficiency part. That's the deadweight loss part. I will explain that. There is another question in the future also asking the same thing, right? That they ask you to explain it. I will explain it there as well. Okay. So right, I'll explain the allocative efficiency deadweight loss story. Listen, we have done this for taxes also. You should use the same logic. We have done this so many times in the theory class. So listen. This is the new way of understanding deadweight loss. The way of understanding deadweight loss has changed. In the last couple of years, it has changed. So this is the new way of understanding it. Some old past papers, answers will be different. Okay. Now, based on this, how much is the initial equilibrium? Okay, first of all, your supply curve lamai represents what? Which? Your marginal what? Supply curve represents the what curve? Your supply curve also represents the marginal cost curve. And your demand curve represents the what? Demand represents the marginal benefit curve. Right. So then based on this marginal cost and marginal benefit, when marginal cost and marginal benefit are equal to each other, and that is what you call allocative efficiency. We learn in unit number 1. When your marginal cost is equal to marginal benefit, we call that allocative efficiency. So according to our diagram, where are you allocatively efficient? Trying to zoom in as much as possible so that unwanted things are not there. Okay. So where are you allocatively efficient? Your allocatively efficient level of output, I'll highlight with a blue dot that is your initial equilibrium point. This one. That is your allocatively efficient point. So your allocatively efficient level of output is a 48 units. So based on marginal cost and marginal benefit, based on them intersecting, the society is saying we want 48 units of this good. That is what allocative means, producing what the society wants. So society is saying we want 48 units. But when there is a subsidy, what happens? When the government comes and interferes in this market, provides a subsidy, supply increases, and now you end up producing 54 units. So now, ideally, you should have allocated resources only to produce 48 units. But because that is what the society wants. But because the government is coming and intervening to the market and supply increases, now you are ending up producing 54 units. So are you overproducing or underproducing? Tell me that. You should have only produced 48, but because the government is coming and intervening and giving this subsidy, you're producing 54 now. So there is a overproduction in the market. See, there is a allocative inefficiency. You're allocating resources more than what is required. You have to be allocating land, labor, capital, entrepreneurship only to produce 48 units. But government came and gave a subsidy, messed up with the market. Now you're allocating more resources. You're allocating inefficient. You're producing more than what the people want. You're producing, there's an overproduction that is happening. So as a result of this overproduction, Lamai, that leads to an inefficiency. And that inefficiency, that there is allocative inefficiency created. The area of that inefficiency is what we call, Lamai, your deadweight loss. So how do you calculate the area of that inefficiency? There is an overproduction of Lamai 6 units. So in that 6 units range, so look at only this yellow shaded range. Huh? Look at this yellow shaded range. Don't look at anywhere else in the diagram. In this yellow shaded range, that is that overproduction 6 units. No? Where is your marginal cost curve? Marginal cost curve is this green curve here, this one here. This is your MC curve. Where is your marginal benefit curve? That is this blue curve in that range. Right? In that range, in that overproduction range, the marginal benefit is that small blue one. Marginal cost is a small green one. Which curve is higher than which one? Which one is higher, Lamai? Is the green curve on top or the blue curve on top? The green curve is on top. What is the green curve? Marginal cost or marginal benefit? Marginal cost. So we can say marginal cost is greater than marginal benefit. So you're not allocatively efficient, Lamai. To be allocatively efficient, marginal cost has to be equal to marginal benefit. But here, you're not allocatively efficient, you're producing more. And as a result, what happens? MC is more than MB. That leads to an inefficiency. That gap between the marginal cost and the marginal benefit, that gap between those two curves, Lamai, that becomes your deadweight loss. So that is how deadweight loss comes, Lamai. So there is another question in the future as well where I have given a typed answer in the 24 paper there is. Then I will show you that answer. So that is the story there. That's how you explain, Lamai, the deadweight loss, the allocatively efficient story. Remember you made the people, 25 people in my revision class. You all wrote an answer for this also. How does the subsidy generate a deadweight loss? Remember I told you all to make short notes for 1 page for each thing, which I never marked and gave. Not marked and gave, which I never chose the best one. Remember that? Every week you all were sending me this one. So that answer for that is exactly that. So how does this lead to a deadweight loss or allocative inefficiency? So that black triangle, that is how that gets formed, Lamai. There is an overproduction. That same logic, you can use it for taxes, maximum prices, minimum prices, and all of that. So it's not about memorizing it, Lamai. It's about understanding the logic there. If you have my theory class recording or something, go back and watch. Okay. And also one more thing is, recently I have been getting a lot of inquiries for my theory class recordings and tutes. You all know you can purchase it. That is good, Lamai, if you all have no way of covering a unit. Like, let's say there is no class, no school, nothing for you to cover a unit. You can get my theory class recordings and tutes and you can finish off a unit. So usually a unit on average has around, Lamai, 15 hours of recordings. So 15 hours of recordings means depends on how you want to watch it. So if you, let's say, allocate 5 hours a day, in 3 days, you can finish a unit. If you allocate, let's say, 2 hours a day, then let's say around 1 week it would take for you to finish it. So based on your pace, you can watch and finish it. You can watch the recordings unlimited times until A levels. Printed tute is also there. So that is much more cheaper and faster, Lamai. Don't waste time joining a 2026 batch. I don't know, some teachers still know. So you all are the 25 batch, Lamai. You don't have to waste time joining the 26 batches theory class and learning unit. That is a waste of time, effort, and money. Don't do that. And even compared to individual class, it's much more efficient. So that's up to you if you all want. There are so many people doing that. Okay, that's that part. I will not type answer for part 5, Lamai. We will discuss when we go to the next parts. Okay. That is okay. Then coming into this. So this one is the same thing that is created again, Lamai. But if you look at this, the answer here, Lamai, I put the original answer that is in the marking scheme. But this answer is the old one. This deadweight loss explanation that is there in the 2020 A-level paper marking scheme, original marking scheme, Lamai, you can't write it anymore. I just copied and pasted it here, but you can't write this anymore. So you have to give an explanation. You have to draw a diagram. That same question is repeated in the 24 paper. I'll explain it there. So remember that. How does a producer surplus create a deadweight loss? So here, earlier when you look at deadweight loss, you look at consumer surplus, producer surplus, government spending. How did that change? All of that. But now when I taught you all this deadweight loss, I never talked about consumer surplus, producer surplus. I talked about allocatively efficient level of output. I said because of the subsidy you're overproducing, that causes allocative inefficiency. The area of that inefficiency is called the deadweight loss, the gap between that MC, MB, and that's how I explain the story. So if you look at this, right, if you have the original marking scheme and if you go through this answer, you will see they have explained this in a different way. That different method is the old method. You can't write that now. Okay, so you can't write this answer anymore. So don't go and write that. The new answer, I will show you. It's there in your tutes also, my theory class tutes. It's also there in the next question here. That is over here in this 24 question I will go through. So shall we quickly do the 22 question and then we'll come to the last 24 question, the theory based one. Okay, and give me answers. Suppose the demand and supply curve for a product is there. They've given the demand and supply equations. Find the equilibrium price and equilibrium quantity. Can you all give me the answers, for part A? How much is the equilibrium price and quantity when you equate the two? How much do you all get? Quick. Price is 120. How much is the quantity? Quantity is also 120. Okay. So price is 120, quantity is also 120. Okay. Then part B is saying, suppose now the government decides to grant a subsidy of 15. What is the price paid by the buyer? Price paid by the buyer is the new equilibrium price. New equilibrium price. So can you all give me, can we do the calculation? Can you all first give me the new supply equation? So QS equation has to change. No? QS equation would be a minus 120 plus 2 within brackets P plus subsidy of 50. How much is my new supply equation when you simplify? 2P 30 minus 90. Minus 90 plus 2P, I'm guessing. New supply equation. Okay. So then based on this, you equate your demand equation with your new supply equation. That is the 720 minus 5P. You equate this with the minus 90 plus 2P. How much do we get? New equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. Price is 90. Can't be 90, no? Can't be 135. No, it has to be less than the 120, but it can't be 30 less because subsidy is only 50. Sorry, have I given the question wrong? Question paper is 720 minus 4P. Oh, right. So I've typed this wrong. No, can you all, someone else also reconfirm? The demand equation is not 720 minus 5P. Is it 720 minus 4P? Yeah. Okay. So can you make that change? Sorry about that. So this is 720 minus 4P. Then, based on this, is the initial equilibrium price and quantity correct? 120, 120? Or does that also change? 140 and 160. Okay. So equilibrium price is 140. Okay. Equilibrium price is 140. Equilibrium quantity is 160. Okay. Then we'll have to make the new supply equation. New supply equation is okay, minus 90 plus this. So here, when you're finding the new equilibrium, it has to be a minus 4P. How much do we get then? New equilibrium price, 135. Okay, so 140 has become 135. Makes sense. How much is the new equilibrium quantity? That is 180. So we don't need the quantity also, right? So question is asking what is the price paid by the buyer after the subsidy? That is your new equilibrium price. So price the buyer will pay is, earlier he paid 140. Now after the subsidy, he will pay 135. Then the question is asking you, what is the price received by the producer, the supplier? So if the consumer is paying 135 and there is a subsidy of 15 lamai, how much will the producer receive? Producer will receive 150. So that's a very easy question again, Lamai. So if you all get these calculations, Lamai, in your paper, I would say these are like free marks. So initial equilibrium price and calculation quantity 2 marks. Then the subsidy part 6 marks. There is 8 marks out of the 20 mark essay question, which you can score all 8. So make sure you properly give your workings, right? Put the numbers properly and do that. Easy as ever. And then we go to the last question from the 24 paper. This is a good question, Lamai, for you all to study as well. I'll draw the diagram. Diagram I didn't draw because I want to give it to you all. So using diagrams, show the deadweight loss created by a subsidy and a tax in a free market. Okay, so free market, normal market. So how does a tax cause a deadweight loss? How does a subsidy cause a deadweight loss? They're giving you a 4-mark question. The explanation I have taken from the original marking scheme itself and put so that I don't have to type it again. The diagram I will draw now. Listen. So now, how does a tax create a deadweight loss? So we'll draw the tax diagram. Try my best to draw as neat as possible. You have the demand curve. You have your supply curve. Supply, demand. This is your initial equilibrium price. I will mark it as P1. Initial equilibrium quantity, I'll mark it as Q1. Then what happens? When there is a subsidy after tax, supply curve Lamai will shift to the left. When the supply shifts to the left, S plus T. Now you have your new equilibrium price, new equilibrium quantity. So according to the explanation, Lamai, they say after tax, the price that consumer pay rises to P2, equilibrium price. And the quantity is now a Q2. And the price that producer receives, so producer receives, that is this price, that is a P3. Yep. So I have explained that. Now, Lamai, where does the deadweight loss come? Look at this. Where does the where does the deadweight loss come from, Lamai? We'll look at that. So, Lamai, we'll use the same logic that we used in the previous story. This supply curve, Lamai, original supply curve represents your marginal cost curve. The original demand curve represents your marginal benefit curve. So based on this, where is your allocatively efficient level of output, Lamai? Can you all give me? Allocatively efficient level of output is Q1 or Q2? Allocatively efficient level of output is Q1, where marginal cost equals marginal benefit. But because this government is coming and providing this tax, charging this tax, as a result, supply is shifting to the left. Now only Q2 is being produced. Is there an underproduction over overproduction? There is a underproduction in the market. So that means that you're allocatively inefficient. You're not producing what the society wants. You're producing less than what they want. So then what is that area of that inefficiency? So look at the gap between Q2 and Q1, right? In that range. Remember earlier I shaded like a yellow range. If you want to shade that again. So think of only in this yellow shaded range. Okay. In this yellow shaded range is where you have to think. That is the underproduction area. So here, where is your marginal cost curve? This is your marginal cost curve, the blue line. Where is your marginal benefit curve? The green line. Which curve is higher? Marginal benefit is higher than marginal cost. MB is higher. That leads to an inefficiency. That inefficiency is what you call, Lamai, the deadweight loss. So this triangle here leads to your deadweight loss. So under that is what you are now. Since this is a 2-mark, now this is a 4-mark question for tax and subsidy, both no. So therefore, in that answer, Lamai, they have not gone into that detail. They have not talked about, that whole story. So, but you have to, if it's a 4-mark question alone, you'll have to show. That's a tax. Same thing, Lamai. You have to have a diagram now because they're saying using diagrams show the deadweight loss. So you have to have a diagram. And then Same thing, Lamai. Now you have for a subsidy. The subsidy one is the one that I showed you before. So I'll quickly draw that again. So the subsidy one, Lamai, you have the demand curve. You have your supply curve. This is your initial equilibrium price, P1, Q1. Now, when there is a subsidy, what happens? Supply curve shifts to the right. This is your new supply curve. Now you have your new equilibrium price, that is P2, and then your new equilibrium quantity, Q2. Price that the producer will receive will be this. He will get P3. So now if you analyze the diagram, Lamai, demand curve is your marginal benefit curve. Supply curve is your marginal cost curve. Your allocatively efficient level of output has to be Q1. You have to only produce Q1. Remember that 48 and 54 example. But here, because of the subsidy, you end up overproducing. You produce Q2. So you're producing at this point. And then what happens? There is an overproduction. So in that range, which range? In this overproduction range, this is the overproduction range, no? Q1 to Q2. Compare the marginal cost and the marginal benefit. So marginal cost in that range is, this is your MC, the blue line. The green line is your marginal benefit. You can see marginal cost is more than marginal benefit. That leads to inefficiency. That inefficiency is what you call your deadweight loss. So that is the story there. So refer to the answer that is there in my marking tute as well, Lamai. Because now last year they asked for tax and subsidy. Maybe in your year, they can ask for something else. They can ask for a maximum price. They can ask for a minimum price. Minimum price itself, there are 3 variations. So what if they ask you when the government provides a minimum price and also supports it with a deficiency payment? Draw and explain how the deadweight loss is created. Or when the government provides maximum price, draw and explain how it's created. So you should know that. For those who are in my revision class, I'm guessing you would have wrote answers for all of that. Have that in mind. Okay, that's the previous one. This is the next one there. So with that, Lamai, sorry, there is one more. No, sorry. There's one more question. A quick calculation with that subsidy is done. So can you quickly give me answers for this? Part 4. Suppose the market demand and supply equations are given. What's the equilibrium price and quantity? QD 280 minus 2P, QS 220 plus 3P. So that's 500, 505. Price is 100. Give me the numbers quickly. Equilibrium price. Equilibrium price is 100. Equilibrium quantity is 80. Okay. Then part 2. Now suppose a subsidy of 10 is given. What is the new equilibrium price and quantity? Same thing. So first, can you all give me the new supply equation? Right. I'm not going to do that for you now. New supply equation. I'll show the previous slide. Give me a second. How much? What is the new supply equation? Minus 190 plus 3P. Okay. So QS is equal to minus 190 plus 3P. Okay. So then based on this, how much is my new equilibrium price and my new equilibrium quantity? 96 and 94 and 92. Correct? Others also, do you all get that number? Equilibrium price 94, quantity 92. That's part B. Okay, I'm going with the answers on the chat box. Last one. Do dairy farmers receive the total subsidy under this situation? If not, what percentage of the subsidy do they actually receive? What do you think, Lamana? Okay, first of all, equilibrium price earlier was 100. Now the equilibrium price is 92. That means, Lamai, from this subsidy of 10 rupees, how many rupees is the consumer getting? How much is the consumer benefit? Consumer earlier paid 100 rupees. Now the fellow is only paying 92. Sorry, 94 rupees. No, sorry. Now he's paying 94. So how much of a benefit is the consumer getting? Quickly, give me an answer. There is a subsidy of 10. Consumer earlier paid 100. Now he's paying a 94. The consumer is getting a benefit of 6 rupees. So if the consumer is getting a benefit of 6 rupees, how much of a benefit will the producer get? Consumer pays 94. subsidy of 10 rupees means producer will now get 104. Earlier he got 100, now he's getting 104. Producer is getting a benefit of 4 rupees. So to answer the question, Lamai, does the dairy farmer get the entire benefit? Yes or no? Does he get the entire subsidy benefit? He doesn't get the entire thing. He only gets a 4 rupee benefit. And then they're asking, if not, what percentage do they receive? So from the 10 rupees subsidy Lamai, he is getting 4 rupees and as a percentage, how much is he getting? What's the percentage? 4 over 10 into 100? He is getting only a 40% of that thing. No? And you can write that and explain Lamai. So see, it's the same area, but they're testing that in different ways. So these are not hard Lamai. And now I have a feeling that given that last year was a subsidy calculation, this year you might not get a subsidy calculation in paper 2. Not 100% guarantee, but most likely, I feel, my prediction, you will not get a subsidy calculation in paper 2. Instead, they will put a bit more questions in paper 1. So this same question, Lamai, they can twist it into a MCQ. The same thing that they're asking over here, they can give this information and they can ask you, right? What percentage will this one receive? What percentage will this receive? They can convert this into MCQ. The knowledge is the same. It's just that where will it be tested? In paper 1 or paper 2? I feel paper 1 could be more likely, but that doesn't mean you completely stop doing subsidy calculations. It can come in paper 2 also, but most likely I feel could be in paper 1. Okay, that's all the questions of subsidies. How do you all feel about the area? Better, safe, can manage? Subsidy focus area done and dusted. Right. So that is done. We'll then move into my maximum prices and price stabilization. So I'll give you a little bit of a longer break because I want to make the slides also. So we'll take a break until now it's 9:07. Sorry, previous slide is the subsidy. Okay. I'll give you a break until around 9:20. The 2020 question, Lama, you can leave it because that is the old method, Lama. Don't go to that. So that same question, Lama, how does a subsidy create a deadweight loss is this? How does subsidy create a deadweight loss? So that answer is the old one. Don't go with right. The same answer, you can write it. Okay. So we'll take a break, Lama. It's 9:08 now. I'll give you a break until 9:20. You can take a break until 9:20 and come. We'll then do the maximum prices and the price stabilization part, and we'll finish it off. That will take around 45 minutes. So we should be able to finish off by around 10:15. We'll wrap it off. Okay. So take a break and come back.